Meditation. I love it.
Okay.
And I'm so excited to talk about it. First of all, when did you start to get into meditation?
Like in my mid 20s is I think when I would first started experimenting with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then would you do like guided meditations like online?
It varies. Yeah. Like Insight Timer is great.
Yeah.
There's some good guided meditations. But it doesn't have to be guided.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you do just if you're doing not guided, what does that look like usually these days?
These days. Okay. So for the sake of the challenge,
Yeah.
I've been meditating consistently now for 20 days.
20 days.
Midpoint of the challenge. Ironically, I haven't meditated today because I've been very busy.
Yeah.
But this is like the first time in my life where I've been doing it really consistently, ritualistically, like every day. And I've been doing more guided meditation as of late. When I'm not doing a guided, like sometimes I used to have this mentor who just say one mindful breath a day, start there. If you can just do one mindful breath, stop, pause. We're all so caught up. Yeah, let's just stop. And we've been talking a lot. And that's it. We've meditated.
Right on. Yeah.
So that's kind of like where I start, is when I catch myself sort of like the squirrel cage is rattling around. And as our friend Jason will say, the squirrels are drinking Red Bull today. One pause, like one deep breath. We actually, it's funny, on our coffee maker at work, I just realized in our office, it has this like little animation where it's like, be mindful. And then it's like, breathe in. And like the ball gets like bigger. And it's like, breathe out. And it does that like 3 or 4 times, then your coffee is ready. And I can go right back to a state of anxiety. But yeah, I think just like really, kind of like focusing on the breath and trying to slow down a little bit.
Yeah.
Take the tongue off the roof of your mouth.
Ooh.
It's a big one. You never realize, like, until someone says that.
Yeah.
Like, it's fucking glued up there.
Yeah.
And I don't know why.
And just talking about it right now, I have noticed a sense of calm, like, come over me. I don't know if you feel it too, but whenever someone mentions the breath, I feel like it's almost impossible not to then focus on your own breath. And focusing on the breath, you're right. It's such a powerful tool because I'm usually up here. I'm usually in my head. I'm usually daydreaming. Even when we're talking right now, there's usually some sort of commentary or chatter or daydream going on. And when I'm up here, I'm not focused on the breath, therefore not here fully.
Yeah.
And I love that. So,
yeah.
So when you do so it sounds like you kind of meditate throughout the day a little bit, but you also have sanctioned time.
Yeah.
With your sanctioned time, is that in the morning, at night, or does it vary?
It varies. Usually it's like in the afternoon. I'll take a little break. I work from home, so I'll just like take a pause and go. And I've been following this meditation teacher that I found on Instagram. He's really good. And he takes through, right now I'm doing like a course that sort of has like a specific intention.
Oh.
And so he's going through kind of the course, and each day he has a little talk and then like a meditation that goes along with it. And it's really about like, the breath is just about being aware, of what our like body is doing and feeling, because the breath happens totally unconsciously, 99.99% of the time, thousands of breaths a day. Totally unconscious, like it just happens. And so to like take a pause, be aware of it, take control of it, it just really like kind of brings you into the moment. And I think for me, like, it's just been a really good exercise. I am someone that's really struggled with anxiety and depression like most of my adult life, like on and off medications and like therapy and like all this shit. Like I've tried all the shit, and really this has been like the best tool that I've ever found, and there's no like silver bullet for that stuff. For me, it sort of takes like, I need to exercise regularly and try to eat better and like make sure my sleep is good and make sure I'm not like, you know, playing 6 hours of video games at night and jerking off 5 times a day. You know, like all the stuff we do for like dopamine and instant gratification, I have to manage that stuff. But the thing that meditation, this like streak of meditation is helping me with is just gaining some separation from what's going on in my brain. And I do that by like getting into like what's going on in my body. You know, we hear people talk about like trauma as like stored in the body, but our body stores so many other things, right? Like, you know, emotions like originate there's a lot of science around like emotions originating from our gut. You know, like there's so many like experiences and emotions that get kind of like stored in our body and we don't realize it, right? Which is why when people talk about anxiety or panic attacks, a lot of times it's like originated from the chest. And so, you know, becoming like aware of that, you're able to kind of gain some separation from what's going on in your brain and not be so like, there's 60,000 thoughts or something that go through my brain every day. Most of them are not winners.
Right.
A lot of them are just bullshit repetitive thought loops that have been there for a long time.
Yeah, it's like when you said that, I'm like, 60,000 thoughts, but about the same 9 things.
Right,
you know?
Over and over.
Yeah. Sometimes they're resentful thoughts. Sometimes they're fearful thoughts. I'm really enjoying this conversation right now. I just have to say, I love talking meditation because I too have struggled with anxiety and depression. Depression, not quite as much. I do get the seasonal thing where it's like, there's always like one day, usually in October, where I just feel like a shift where I'm like, oh man, 6 months. Like, and I just feel like baseline drops a little bit. But with the anxiety, I can relate. I've been to psychiatrists and they diagnosed me with like generalized anxiety disorder.
Right. Yeah.
It's like, I'm sure everybody
What does that
it.
even mean?
I know they had me on the
think a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. They had me on the Zoloft and then the Lexapro and I did not do wonders for, it didn't kill it entirely, but it just made me, both of them kind of made me just feel a little apathetic and tired. And
Zoloft made me yawn a lot.
Okay.
Which is like a common side effect.
Is it?
Just yawning all the time. I'm like, this can't be helping my depression to make me more tired.
So meditation does help me with anxiety for sure. It helps, I feel like, lengthen my fuse when it comes to anger and frustration too.
Yeah.
I can tolerate more.
Yeah, the window of tolerance expands.
Yeah. And I really feel it. I really feel it when I go from a long period of not meditating at all, kind of putting it on the back burner. And then like that first week I start doing it again, I go, oh, like there's that realization.
This is why I do this.
Yeah. And then there's kind of a plateau, but I just have to be mindful of like the plateau is not a bad thing.
Yeah.
All the benefits I got originally are still happening.
Right.
It's just they don't feel as sexy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's the juxtaposition of it. It's like, oh, I feel like I have a longer fuse today. Well, I also had a longer fuse yesterday because I meditated. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
But my meditation practice, I usually do a couple. So I've been really regimented about writing in the morning. Like I got it from this other book called The Artist Way that I've mentioned a couple times on this podcast.
Yeah.
But one of the things it has you do is first thing in the morning, you write 3 pages in a notebook of stream of conscious thinking.
Yep.
And
I've heard of this.
I get a lot of benefit from it because if there's anything that I'm carrying, like if I woke up carrying anything, it just goes right on the page. And there's been times where I've been super pissed off at certain people and I've just written 3 pages of like, got it all out. And then afterwards it's like, ooh, I don't have to look at that anymore.
Yeah.
And it does help.
Kind of takes away its power.
Yeah, it does. And so that is a form of meditation, but I've been, usually from there, like I'll go work out. I'm a home workout person. I'll work out in the basement and I have a sauna. Yeah. Not like a traditional charcoal sauna. It's like a tent. It's like 6 feet. It fits 2. It's like infrared, but it gets up to 115, 120, so it's warm enough.
That's legit.
Yeah. But then like the last 10 minutes of that, if I'm listening to a podcast, I'll turn it off and I will just sit in silence for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And I think that's, and sometimes I'll focus on my breath, but sometimes I'll just like sit there with my eyes closed and just like let the thoughts happen.
Yeah.
Which I think is helpful for me because, you mentioned it. I block out my thoughts in a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
Like I am constantly listening to podcasts, so it's like cool because I'm learning.
Yeah.
But it's not giving me a chance to think and connect with my
process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's another form.
Yeah. One of the things this teacher talks about a lot that I really like, he says, show me the ways that you avoid stillness and I'll show you the patterns that run your life. Mm-hmm. And that really hit me. When I look at the ways that I avoid stillness, like, for me, video games, scrolling on my phone, like, whatever. A lot of people are like constant busyness. Like I always have to be doing something. I always have to have like an agenda or a list or accomplishing. He's like, show me the ways that you avoid stillness and I'll show you the patterns that run your life. And what I'm learning is that like we have all these like subconscious like patterns in the way that we operate and we don't even realize that we're operating off of them, and a lot of times they're just like survival like responses that we picked up when we were younger, and now like we have a phone addiction or like we have to be like constantly doing something all the time, or, for some people they turn to drugs and alcohol or, whatever we're turning to for like that, that dopamine hit. And just slowing down and like breathing and like going into our body and like seeing like what's going on. We're able to kind of like see, okay, like what am I running from? What am I trying to not think about or suppress, or like, what is this experience I had that is actually like, determining my behaviors now because I didn't like let it process, One of the other kind of like, I don't know, like tenets of meditation and the folks that are like enlightened, and I just for the people listening, I am not a guru in this. I have no qualifications to be talking about this.
Likewise.
Just strictly talking off my own experience and what I've learned. But one of the things that, folks who are, like the gurus and the monks who practice, for hours on end each day, they talk about like the temporary, the everything is temporary, right? Like nothing is like permanent, and our system is everything is like meant to pass. Like if we're upset or angry about something, like that's meant to like process and pass. But a lot of times as humans, like we hold on to that stuff and then we start doing other things to like avoid processing that,
Yeah.
And by sort of like taking the time to just be still and like breathe and like go into our body and like really sort of like let that stuff can start to like loosen up and pass,
Yeah, I do. One of the most powerful meditation. Oh, by the way, I also not a guru, not a guru. I think but I do think it's important to point this out to anyone. I hear this a lot. This is the only reason I'm bringing it up, is a lot of people, if it comes up in conversation, which it doesn't really, sometimes
casual conversation.
Well, sometimes I was
talking to the grocery store checkout clerk about
asking about what he thought about meditation. Yeah. But I think sometimes in like recovery, like recovery circles, whatever, it's whatever. But I hear this a lot. That's I can't meditate because I can't quiet my mind.
Yeah.
And I think about that and I can totally relate to it because my mind is certainly not quiet most of the time. But then I thought about it, I'm like, that's kind of like saying like, I can't go to the gym because I can't lift weights.
Right.
You're putting the cart before the horse.
Right.
It's like, no, very, very, very few people other than probably like the gurus that you mentioned are quote great at meditation.
Right.
But for me, it's like a couple things. It's like, there are like little windows where you think, oh, I'm thinking too much.
Right.
The voice that's saying, oh, I'm thinking too much, that's the awareness that you're trying to connect with.
Right.
So it was a very big realization for me, and a fellow by the name of Eckhart Tolle.
Yeah.
who wrote The Power Now, one of the most profound books I've ever read in my life. I needed it at the time. The first chapter, it's like chapter 1, you are not your mind. And I remember listening to the audiobook and I'm like, oh, I don't know that I've ever had a statement hit me so hard, because I never knew that I was not my mind. I thought, well, yeah, my mind, like, sure, my mind drags me along like a freaking, like a wild river, like I constantly in the rapids, and sometimes it's a slower rapid, sometimes not. But to know that, like, oh, I'm not that. I can get out of that. I can observe that. I can be like the watcher of these thoughts rather than be the thoughts themselves.
Who is the part of you that's like observing the thoughts?
Yeah.
That'll fuck you up a little bit.
Ooh, that is the juicy stuff.
To really think about the different parts of the human psyche.
Yeah.
But our mind rules all for some reason.
Right.
Or we tend to be ruled by it.
Yeah.
I tend to be ruled by it.
Yeah. I will say this, and whether or not whoever's listening believes me, 2015, I was going through a divorce. That's what it was. I was going through a divorce and I was really hurting. And I had a sober friend, recommend Power of Now to me. And I don't think I could afford the book at the time, but I downloaded it like illegally, allegedly. I downloaded the audiobook.
Look how far you couldn't afford the book.
I know. I know.
Look at you now.
I know. And
you splurge on stickers of your kid's face.
Well, this was a gift. This was a gift. And I swear to God, there was like a 2-month period where I was in like a pure state of like presence and awareness and stillness while going through a divorce, while, being broke as shit. Like, and I would just listen to it constantly, and something about like his voice and his ability to guide me to being like 100% present. Like you talked about, like noticing your breath, feeling like the energy in like your hands and feet. And I've had glimpses of that since then, but it was seriously like 2 months where I was like, it's seriously like on the beam and didn't waver at all. Like I was like totally connected with whatever. And so that would be my recommendation, is that book. If you've never dabbled in the world of meditation or any of this stuff, that would be a recommendation.
I haven't read that one.
It's a good one.
I might listen to it.
Yeah. You said the meditation teacher you found on Instagram.
Yeah.
Care to share his name?
His name is Corey Mascara.
Corey Mascara.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's incredible.
Okay.
Yeah.
Never heard his name.
Yeah.
I wonder if he's on YouTube.
I'm sure he is.
Yeah.
And he has like all kinds of courses and stuff like that. But he studied in Burma with a bunch of like, did the whole 12 hours a day, like can't talk. I don't know. But he's got some really insightful stuff. But I'm glad you brought up like what you're talking about with like a couple things really crossed my mind there. You're talking about like the form of meditation. And, that's one thing I've learned, is that like there are really a lot of misconceptions about the form of meditation. People think I have to sit a certain way or breathe a certain way, or like, or I can't think about anything, otherwise I've failed, and that's just not true. I mean, for some people, like running is a form of meditation, right? Like just different ways that, we talked earlier about like building Legos, like when you're able to just sort of like quiet the mind and be like fully present in what you're doing. But another thing that this guy Corey says is like kind of a common tenet in meditative practices is like, they say, when the mind wanders, we simply begin again. And I think a lot of people will say like, I can't meditate because I can't quiet my mind. But like the idea is that there's no judgment, there's no I'm good or bad at this. Like that doesn't really exist in that space. It's just, if you find yourself, going off on a tangent, you catch that and you sort of just bring it back and you start again. You just start again. Some days it's better than others, and some days, my mind's all over the place. But the idea is that I just continue practicing. Yeah.
No good and no bad. Allowing things to be.
Yes, sir.
That's a big one for me. I have a mind that can be very judgmental, and it's a weird, it's a weird dynamic because, like, of course, if you're driving on the road and a car's coming right at you, you want to have that thought like, oh, this is bad.
Right.
You know, or if if I see my kid have a good day at school, I want to be like, well, this is good.
Yeah.
But I almost can get like addicted to the judgment of things
Right.
and start labeling
Yeah.
good, bad, and so meditation allows me to pull away from that.
Yeah.
And like, not everything requires my judgment.
Yeah.
Everything can just be as it is.
Yeah. I know. Our brains are little judgment machines.
I know.
That's how they're programmed.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel bad if Corey ever sees this, like he's just going to hear a bunch of stuff that he said to me and I'm just now parroting. But one of the things that he says that I really like is like, we don't meditate to find peace. We meditate to like meet reality. And there's this famous like story about the Dalai Lama where some guy was like really upset and he comes to the Dalai Lama and he's like, I've been so resentful and I've been meditating and trying to let go of this resentment and like blah, blah, blah. And the Dalai Lama, who's like, just enlightened, he says, well, have you spent enough time being angry? And, what I'm learning is like, sometimes like we have to spend that time like meeting reality for the way it is. I'm pissed off because this person did this thing to me. And instead of like suppressing that by avoidance or, doom scrolling or, like constant activity and like, it's funny you brought up your divorce because that's sort of what has like led me on this kick is a breakup, which is just so funny. Like, if you want to better your life, men out there, just, get dumped like that.
That's why Zuckerberg started Facebook. Okay?
Yeah, exactly.
So you want to do something great.
Yeah.
Just break up.
You just need an angel of death in your life and then suddenly you'll get all your shit together.
Yeah, tremendous amount of pain.
Yeah.
I heard that from you for the first time. Pain is a great motivator.
It is a great motivator.
Very true.
Yeah. Yeah. But, like, the reality is like we all have like hurt and pain and suffering and whatever, and you can't avoid that. Like, you have to like meet it. And so instead of like trying to meditate to find peace, like meditate to find reality and like meet truth.
Yeah.
I still have this like hurt or this anger that I have to process before I can like have more peace, as opposed to just like, oh, I'm resentful or angry at this person, but I need to be peaceful. It's not necessarily about changing it, but more so like meeting it.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
I have two thoughts on that. The first one, I don't remember if it was from a movie, a TV show, or what, and I'm going to butcher the quote, but I think the sentiment I got, and it's like, the cause of all mental disorders is from people's tendency to avoid like negative emotions.
Yeah.
So I thought about that. I'm like, whoa, yeah. Anytime someone's like, for me, depressed and anxious, I've felt anxious. I'm always like, usually in this pattern of avoiding something that I don't want to be feeling.
Yeah.
And I just push it away. What I used to use, booze and drugs, but now I can use anything. I can, doom scrolling, podcasting, like, so I don't gotta think my own thoughts.
Yeah.
I can just listen to podcasts endlessly and get caught up in work.
Yeah.
Can,
some people use fitness or self-improvement or any of that stuff can be an avoidance technique.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I really like that thought. And then the second one is share a powerful meditation that I've come across, and I can link it in the description here. And the video, if you just search YouTube, I think it's just called How to Deal with Strong Negative Emotions. And
poignant.
Yeah.
Right on the nose.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I was a fan of the YouTube channel, whatever. I've gotten some value from it. And so, like I said, I'll link it, but it's basically 30, 40 minutes, and it's a guided meditation where you basically become like a superconductor. Like, if you think of like an electrical current, you imagine yourself as this like superconductor of the uncomfortable emotion you're trying to feel. So you trudge up in your mind, like, what happened that caused you to feel it.
Yeah.
So you're going through a breakup and you got cheated on.
Yeah.
This guy.
Who would cheat on you?
every time.
They're adorable.
Apparently, I don't know. But I think it was like a whatever. And she texted, like, it was my ex-fiance. She like slept with another dude, and rather than have a conversation about it, she like texted me like, "Hey, banged another dude.
Oh, sick.
Blowing him now. Wanted to let you know." Send.
Yeah.
And I just like read. They
say communication is the foundation of any good relationship.
And we didn't have it. What was I saying? Oh, so you bring in the mind like, okay, got a text, blew another dude, feeling sad, whatever. And then you just you don't like replay it over and over in your mind, but you think about it enough to actually get the feeling in your body.
Yeah.
And then this whole meditation is like 20 to 30 minutes of just holding it. Like just letting go. Like I spit on myself. Letting go and just feeling it, and it really has like such a strong impact when you do it, cuz like you realize like, oh, this sucks, but it's not going to kill me.
Right.
And B, like the more you do it, the less of an edge it has.
Yep.
And the more like you're wanting to avoid it starts to diminish. Like you stop wanting to avoid it. So,
that contact with it creates movement.
Yeah.
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 It's a very powerful exercise.
Yeah. So. I love that. I mean, I just love the visualizations with like the ball of light and your breath going out as the black negative, and you breathe in the ball of light. I love that.
Yeah.
That visualization shit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it kind of goes back to like what we were talking about earlier. Like nothing is supposed to be, like everything is temporary. Mm-hmm. But as humans, we will glom onto stuff, and they'll sort of they'll stay stored in our body or in our psyche, in our subconscious somewhere. And because we don't want to feel it. It doesn't feel good. So instead we'll just avoid it.
Yeah. And then once you feel it, it feels so much lighter. Like it's seriously like I've been, we talk about carrying around or feeling like low. It's like take off just let it go.
Yeah.
Just let it go.
Drop the rock.
Drop the rock, baby. Yeah.
Yeah.
What a book.
Yeah. The third book in that series, it's called Drop the Fucking Rock Already.
Haven't read that one.
Yeah.
The third edition. So when you meditate, just a couple practical things here before we wrap up. When you meditate, we talked about kind of during the day when you do it. Do you have like a general length of time? Are you like a 10 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour?
Yeah. I mean, I've been doing a lot of guided meditations, and they're generally around 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's kind of my.
Sometimes I'll stay in practice longer if I'm feeling like very, zen or in the whatever.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm very like scatterbrained and I can't do it for very long, and that's okay too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's where I could use some improvement there when I have a bad meditation, quote unquote. I don't know if that really exists, but just I can like feel like, oh, I'm not going to get as much value out of that one in my day, but it's all just part of the journey.
Yeah.
It's all. You might not.
Like I didn't maximize the value of this time. Mm-hmm. Doing bad.
Yeah.
This is going to go on your review, Chris. Going to put you on a PIP.
Oh, God. What's a PIP?
Performance Improvement Plan.
Yeah.
You're basically fired. If you're ever on a PIP, just go find a new job.
Oh, for